Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're exploring a place that's so much more than just a pretty neighborhood. It's actually a historical puzzle with clues written right into the stone and wood of its buildings. We are diving deep into Casco Viejo, Panama's living, breathing history. And that puzzle really starts with this one big question. You walk through its streets and you see these grand Spanish colonial churches right next to buildings that feel totally French, with these amazing balconies that look like they were pulled straight from the Caribbean. So how is that possible? How can one single neighborhood be Spanish, French, and Caribbean all at the same time? Well, that's the mystery we're going to solve together. All right, so the very first clue is a pretty dramatic one. It's a story of total destruction and then rebirth. To really get the Casco Viejo of today, you have to understand the city that came before it, a city that was burned to the ground, and the new fortress that rose up from its ashes. It's pretty incredible how one single event just completely reshaped Panama City's destiny. So picture this. It's 1671, and the infamous pirate Henry Morgan attacks and burns the original city, Panama Viejo. It was an absolute catastrophe. So just 2 years later, in 1673, the Spanish didn't just rebuild, they moved. They picked a nearby peninsula that was way more defensible, and that's where they founded the city we now know as Casco Viejo. And they built it with a very clear plan. This wasn't just some new town. It was engineered to be a fortified city. We're talking defensive walls, a really organized, gridded street plan, and a prime spot right on the coast. The whole point was to protect and control the Spanish Empire's super important trade routes across the Isthmus of Panama. It was basically a fortress guarding a global superhighway. Okay, and this brings us right back to the heart of our puzzle, the architecture. The buildings themselves are the clues that tell this incredible global story. So let's start unpacking these layers of influence one by one. The foundation, right, the very skeleton of the city, is pure Spanish colonial. That's the first layer you see. You can feel it in that 17th and 18th century grid layout, the big, orderly plazas like the famous Plaza de la Independencia, and of course those grand, imposing church facades. This was the original blueprint, and it's all about the power and planning of the Spanish Empire. But of course, history didn't just stop there. As Panama's connections to the rest of the world grew, and after a couple of major fires forced some rebuilding, a whole new layer was added, a very distinct European touch. Suddenly, neoclassical and Beaux-Arts styles were all the rage. You started seeing these ornate cornices and fancy facades on public buildings, showing influences from France, Italy, even Belgium. It's a sign of a city that's modernizing and looking outward to the world. And this is the layer that really makes Casco Viejo one of a kind. It's this vibrant Caribbean connection. This came from Afro-Antillean building traditions brought over by migrant workers. You can see it so clearly in those distinctive wooden balconies and the louvered shutters, which are perfect for letting the air flow. This amazing timber work is what really sets Casco apart from a lot of other Spanish colonial cities. So how do we tie this all together? Well, this quote just nails it. Casco Viejo is a layered palimpsest, a built record of trade, labor migration, empire, and modernizing taste. It's not one style, it's a bunch of them, written right on top of each other. And just like that, our architectural puzzle is solved. The Spanish laid the groundwork, the Europeans added the fancy details, and the Caribbean builders gave it its soul. But, the story doesn't end in the past. Not at all. Casco Viejo's history is still being written, and today it's facing a whole new set of really complex challenges. This is the modern twist in its very old story, its revival. The big turning point really came in 1997. That was the year Casco Viejo was named a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and that international recognition was a complete game changer. It kicked off this huge wave of restoration, a ton of reinvestment, and a brand new chapter for the neighborhood. And that new chapter, well, it has two very different sides to it. On the one hand, the revival has brought some huge wins. Public spaces are safer, there's a boom in tourism and cultural jobs, and so many historic buildings have been beautifully preserved. But all that change also brought incredible pressure. You have rising rents pushing out families who have lived there for generations, tensions over what heritage tourism should even mean, and the kind of displacement that often follows big money. It's a really delicate balance, and the community is still trying to figure it out today. So after peeling back all these layers, from pirates to preservationists, what do the walls of Casco Viejo actually tell us? Let's read the city's story and get to our big takeaway. If there's one thing to remember, it's this. Casco Viejo is literally a timeline written in stone and wood. Every single balcony, every plaza, every fancy facade. It's not just there to look pretty, it's a historical document. It's a physical record of the global forces and all the different people who came together to shape this amazing place. And that leaves us with one last really important question that goes way beyond Panama. When we look at places like Casco Viejo that are trying to navigate this tricky balance between their past and their present, we have to ask ourselves, when we preserve a city's past, whose future are we building? It's a question that really makes you think about what heritage truly means and who it's really for. Thank you for joining this explainer.